One day, little Johnny saw his grandpa smoking his cigarettes. Little Johnny asked, "Grandpa, can I smoke some of your cigarettes?" His grandpa replied, "Can your penis reach your asshole?" "No," said little Johnny. His grandpa replied, "Then you're not old enough." The next day, little Johnny saw his grandpa drinking beer. He asked, "Grandpa, can I drink some of your beer?" His grandpa replied, "Can your penis reach your asshole?" "No," said little Johnny. "Then you're not old enough," his grandpa replied. The next day, little Johnny was eating cookies. His grandpa asked, "Can I have some of your cookies?" Little Johnny replied, "Can your penis reach your asshole?" His grandpa replied, "It most certainly can." Little Johnny replied, "Then go fuck yourself." Little Johnny's chemistry teacher wanted to teach his class a lesson about the evils of liquor, so he set up an experiment that involved a glass of water, a glass of whiskey, and 2 worms. "Now, class, observe what happens to the worms," said the professor, putting the first worm in the glass of water. The worm in the water moved about, twisting and seemingly unharmed. He then dropped the second worm in the whiskey glass. It writhed in pain for a moment, then quickly sank to the bottom and died. "Now, kids, what lesson can we derive from this experiment?" he asked. Little Johnny raised his hand and wisely responded, "Drink whiskey and you won't get worms." Little Johnny was seated next to a stranger on the plane. Shortly after liftoff, the stranger turned to little Johnny and said, "Want to talk? I've heard that flights are quicker if you strike up a conversation with your fellow passenger." Little Johnny, who had just opened his comic book, slowly closed it and said to the stranger, "Okay, sure, what would you like to discuss?" "Oh, I don't know," said the stranger. "How about nuclear power?" he then said. "Okay, fine," said little Johnny. "That could be an interesting topic. But first let me ask you a question. A horse, a cow, and a moose all eat grass, the same stuff. Yet a moose poops little pellets, whilst a cow churns out a flat patty, and a horse shits large clumps of dried grass. Why do you suppose that is?" little Johnny asks. "Geez, I have no idea," the stranger said, slightly confused. "Well then," said little Johnny, "how is it that you feel qualified to discuss nuclear power when you don't know shit?" One day, little Johnny was curious about his mother. He asked his mother, "Mom, how old are you?" Her response was, "You don't ask ladies that question. Now go play." Ignoring her request, Johnny then asked his mother, "Okay, how much do you weigh then?" His mother, now slightly annoyed, said, "You don't ask ladies that question either." Still wanting to learn something, he continued and asked, "Why did Daddy leave you?" Now infuriated, his mother said, "Don't ask that. Go to your room immediately." Disappointed, on the way to his room, little Johnny tripped over his mother's purse. He picked it up and noticed his mom's driver's license. Johnny looked at it with a smirk, and then goes back to his mother and says, "Ha! Now I know all about you. You are 42 years old, you weigh 225 pounds, and Dad left you because you got an F in sex." Little Johnny and his 3 friends were sitting on a bench outside of school, bragging about their father's eating habits. The first friend says, "My father is so cool. He can eat 5 hamburgers in a single meal." The second friend scoffs at it and says, "That's nothing. My dad can eat 8 in a single sitting." "Oh yeah, he can eat 8? Wow, big deal. My father can eat 10 and still have room for dessert," the third friend says. Little Johnny bursts into laughter and says, "Burgers? Desserts? My dad can eat light bulbs. Beat that." The other boys just looks at him and says, "You're insane, Johnny. You can't eat light bulbs. Why do you think he can do that?" they ask, questioning why he believes his father can eat light bulbs. Johnny confidently responds, "Well, last night when I passed my parents' room, my dad said to my mom, 'Honey, turn off that light. I want to eat that thing.'